Joe Biden is proud of his Irish roots. He doesn't fail to mention it on most occasions. His inaugural was full of words by Irish poet Seamus Heaney. 8 of his 10 great-grandparents were of Irish origin. He is undoubtedly the most Irish US president to sit in the White House. With all that riding on his back, Joe Biden is headed to Northern Ireland, a region where this happened just yesterday. A number of masked Irish protesters attacked the police with petrol bombs. Some vehicles were seen covered in flames. Now, the situation is a lot more calm today. Security has been hiked and police vehicles have been stationed within close distances. Needless to say, these are critical times. The protests came on the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. The deal ended 3 decades of sectarian bloodshed in Northern Ireland. Signed in Belfast on the 10th of April in 1998, the Good Friday Agreement is considered one of the most significant peace deals of the late 20th century. But the peace has come under question now. After Britain's exit from the European Union, Northern Ireland became the only part of the UK to have a land border with an EU country, which is the Republic of Ireland. Checks are required on goods transported between the UK and the EU's markets. But both sides agree that this should not happen on the Irish border, because only this way the Good Friday Agreement can be protected. These days, there isn't much the United States can boast about on the global stage. Either its decades-long diplomacy is failing, or international partners are seeking other mediators. But the Good Friday Agreement is the kind of opportunity the US has been looking for. Biden sees the agreement as part of his own political legacy, and he is here to claim credit for encouraging his country's involvement in the peace process.
President Biden is continuing on in a long tradition of American presidents who've maintained an interest in the peace process in Northern Ireland. They see themselves as co-guarantors of the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, which means that they are particularly keen to see the British-Irish relationship be a good one and a close one.
A very mixed environment is being expected. US President Joe Biden is seen excited for the meeting. He wishes to be the perfect Irish catalyst to solve the differences. But Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party has already given a warning that Biden's visit will not end the protest over post-Brexit trade rules. So will Biden be able to make United States the diplomacy bridge like in 1998? That remains to be seen. Joining us on the broadcast is Defense and security expert David Dunn from Birmingham. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Good evening.
David, the US president is visiting the UK but won't be visiting London. Now, we can't ignore this fact. He won't be attending King Charles' upcoming coronation either. How does President Biden's visit to Ireland reflect London's ties with Washington?
Well, it's possible to read too much into that. Joe Biden did, of course, attend the funeral of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and therefore there's only scope for so much ceremonial. In some ways, the political importance of celebrating the Good Friday Agreement and arriving in Northern Ireland with the promise of further investment if the government can be restored in Northern Ireland is a more important political message for this part of the UK and the UK as a whole than perhaps him going to London. But it's part also of his visit to Ireland that he's doing the trip, staying on the same island rather than going across to London. I think that the relationship has improved as a consequence of the breakthrough, the Windsor framework with regard to Northern Ireland, which the Biden administration was very keen to see enacted. But of course, there's also the wider embarrassment that actually Biden and Clinton and others are coming to Northern Ireland to celebrate 25 years of the success of the Good Friday Agreement at a time when its provisions are not being enacted, and there has been no government actually in place in Northern Ireland for the last year and more as a consequence of the fallout from the Brexit process.
David, Biden's visit to Ireland and Northern Ireland, what will it mean for these two nations?
Well, for Ireland, it's always great to have the American president come to a small country and bestow it with such lavish praise and engagement, and of course to reunite and reconnect the roots of the American president to Ireland. So for Biden, it's a personal pilgrimage to go to the various sites in Ireland where his ancestors came from, and it's also politics. There's always an upcoming election in America with the electoral cycle, and there are 45 million Americans who, like Biden, identify as Irish American, and he's trying to connect with them and the wider Catholic community by showing his roots and his connections to Ireland and celebrating that. So it's partly politics and partly that connection. John F. Kennedy visited Ireland. Ronald Reagan, who has Irish roots, visited Ireland. Even Obama, who has some Irish ancestry, also actually was keen to celebrate that as part of his identity. And so there's always politics, there's always votes in claiming your Irishness, much more so than Englishness, which seems to have faded somewhat in terms of the way in which demographics work in America.
David, I'm going to scratch a little beyond the surface here. Is President Biden's visit to Ireland a snub of the current UK government, which was perhaps hoping to use Biden's visit to prove the success of its Windsor Framework Agreement?
I don't think so. I think the fact that Biden is going to Northern Ireland, is in Northern Ireland. The fact that he's there celebrating it with Bill Clinton, the fact that he is coming with that saying there will be further investment in Northern Ireland if you can restore power. These are important messages for London, and they are very welcome in London. The fact that this is going ahead, it's, as I say, the wider context of that is slightly awkward. But as far as the UK is concerned, this is a success. The fact that he's going to one part of the United Kingdom rather than two parts is not something that's making an issue in the UK. It is actually him visiting the United Kingdom and then visiting Ireland. And for Sunak's government, that's enough. Actually, they've got many other things to be getting on with without having Biden come every 6 months or so.
The unionist sentiment is definitely can be seen over here. Thank you so much for joining in, David.
Okay.